welcome back to Getting to the Top, where I interview transformational leaders about their leadership journey in hopes that I can inspire you to pursue leadership at the highest level and to be a voice for change in the leadership that we're seeing globally. Today, I have the immense and extreme honor of interviewing Kelly Tomblin. I've known Kelly Tomblin since 2008 when she headed up JPS. At the time, Lean In had just come out, and she was such a fierce and phenomenal leader. And she was so visible and passionate and a force for change. But she was also so authentic. Like you know, people would just feel like they knew her, just seeing her because of the breath of fresh air that she was for JPS. She is currently the president and CEO of El Paso Electric. And just 1 year into this tenure, she has launched multiple initiatives, including a newly envisioned strategic plan. And my favorite, she is electrifying transportation. She's putting out electric vehicle infrastructure. She's tripling the utilities renewable energy portfolio. And she has committed to a plan that has committed to 80% carbon-free by 2035 and 100% decarbonization by 2045, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And this is why we need more diverse leaders with different lived experiences who are willing to be bold and different and create change. So welcome, Kelly, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Well, you've done such a good job. Obviously, I didn't do anything that you mentioned alone. I've always had great teams in Jamaica Public Service. I had the greatest team. Still, we have a WhatsApp group that we talk to about every day. So, but in any event, you said it, I'm Kelly Tomblin, President and CEO of now El Paso Electric. Been a president or CEO for many years and now decades. And I'm just happy to be here. My career started, I think you know this, my first degree is journalism. I was a DJ. I wrote for the paper, Kelly T at WLOG, and definitely didn't get started the way a lot of people did in the energy industry. And I did that for a few years, went back to law school, became an energy lawyer for a big law firm. I took a pay cut, half my pay, and went to the utility company, which I fell in love with this energy sector. And I've been through many jobs and been with this energy sector in various forms, whether independent power, utilities, or building infrastructure for another company for about 30 years now. And I think loving your industry or being proud of it is part of being successful in your job. And I've been honored to be a part of this industry now for decades.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you know, we were talking before we got started about the fact that you're seeing a lot more diversity at the top of utility companies now, as a result of investments and positioning and opportunities that were opened up years ago. So tell me a little bit more about that. Like you know, how are we starting to see some of the things that have been put in place bear fruit?
Yes, and I think it's a really important message because I have this job because a lot of people believe that I could have it, not just me individually, but people like me. I am, as I said, I'm a journalism major, I'm a lawyer. I went back to school to get my MBA, but people that are in this industry historically have been engineering, have been very technical. And back in the day, in early 90s, we looked across the energy sector and they're all white men. And that's, you know, that was just a fact. And the industry noticed it, like, oh, and especially for our industry that represents everybody. And a lot of times you don't have a choice. And we represent every human being on this planet for the most part, or every sector. And they said, we have to do something about that. We had a diversity director in 1993. And what they started to do was give us diverse experiences. Like, for instance, I went to our independent power arm, which was a more competitive part of the energy space and for my company. And I was doing things I would never do. People of color were also given new and different opportunities. It's really hard to catch up in the normal scheme of things. And I could spend all day talking about what competent means and fake job requirements that we've put in place over the years. And we just eradicated some of that and said, we're looking for potential. So we had a director of diversity. We had high potentials that had been doing great in their particular jobs and started to give them diverse experiences. And I think because of that, people started to take risk. And it is taking risk if you haven't been engineer 1, engineer 2, engineer 3, manager of engineering, director of engineering, vice president of engineering. If you don't go that trajectory, there is some risk taking the organization makes because it's clear you don't know everything. But I think what we found in leadership, it's often a hindrance when you think you know everything. So that journey started many years ago. And if you look at our sector today, the largest utilities are now led, a lot of them, by women and people of color, and it is a completely different face than we had 20 years ago when we started on this journey. And I remember them saying, we might not do it today, but we will do it. And now we have. Not finished yet. We're not finished yet. But I think we made a good start. And I think one of the reasons I'm passionate about having this discussion is I don't want it to stop here. We have a lot more work to do.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure that we were clear about that, because I think, for me, when you see how things are growing, the temptation is to say, oh, well, it's progressing, so let's just let it run. And I think that that's dangerous, because we can, even in the pandemic, we lost so many of the gains that we made. And so it's something that I think will require continued pressure in order for us to ensure that we get to gender parity.
Just remember this is Martin Luther King Day Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the US. People worked real hard to get us here. I mean, let's not forget that. All those gains I told you we made, was made because people took risk on people, worked really hard. They fought really hard. And in some cases, they fought in the court system really hard. So this has been blood, sweat, and tears. This hasn't been, oh, let's get a diversity director and everything will be all fine. It took me moving 14 different places. A lot of things have happened to open up doors. So that door has just begun to open. Let's not say, oh, we got some scraps. It's great. No, 70% of the people on boards are still white men in the US. And I'm sure it's like that nationwide, and maybe not white, but fill in the blanks, men or whatever category has been in the privileged category. So we have to continue to work to make up more and different opportunities, and both ways. I was sitting in my offices in New York, and there was 3 men having babies. And they were so excited they got to take off to be with their baby. So it's gender equality all around, but people fought hard for that, and we're certainly not finished.
Great. So what needs to happen? Not that we'll ever get to finish, but what needs to happen to ensure that we continue to make progress? So what are some of the things that need to happen?
This is a whole, seminar, but I think the first thing that needs to happen is with our individual mindset. The biggest barrier, you and I talked a little bit about this, is the individual mindset. Yeah. So it's the people who are beautiful and brilliant who don't want to raise their hands to be put in these jobs because they either think I'm not smart enough, beautiful enough, whatever enough, or they look at the jobs and say, "Ooh, that looks awful. That looks hard." And I was saying to somebody, "You think I really work that much harder than a lineman?" No, I don't work harder than a lineman. So I think there's a misperception that you have to give up your soul and you have to be a really mean person, or that you're not smart enough, good enough, bright enough. So I think both of those are mindsets, again, the way of having people really, what I like to say is fulfill your potential. So for me, it's number one, we have to get ourselves right. And you know this, Racquel, I'm always asking, what are you doing to know yourself better? Like I'll have my offsite with my team. We're all over 50. I'll say, what did you learn last year? How do you know yourself better? So we have to do our own individual work to know what barriers are in our own way. What messages have we been taught? I have a book. I listened to a podcast called We Can Do Hard Things, and I like highly recommend it. And there's a book called Untamed. It's a journal that I use too by the same person, but we can do hard things. And we have to get to know what in our mindsets, what's our mental barriers before we start dealing with structural barriers, which are many. But the first biggest barrier I always see now are for especially women not raising their hand, not taking their seat at the table, believing somebody's going to invite them to the table, and believing somehow that they just have to get that next degree, or they have to get that next thing to be good enough to sit at the table. And I think that's number one mindset. Number two is that we have to work together. We have to have you can't say tribe now, but call it ever, your group, your sisters, your whatever. And a lot of sisters have brothers. So I would never have this job if it wasn't for Bruce Levy, Mike Chesser. When I said, I can be a president of the company, they're like, really? I said, I'm not old enough. They said, oh, let me, over in Rack today, there's a 25-year-old that have 200 people, that has 200 people depending on him for their lives. I think you could run a utility company. I was like, okay. But they had to convince me, both of those men and many others, usually, unfortunately, they were men, that I could handle the job. So build your team. One of my friends always says your network is your net worth. So this idea that build your team and ask for help and be vulnerable. So that's number two. Make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people that helps your mindset. As you've heard me talk about my great philosopher Pitbull, he says, he says, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. This idea that, I used to have when I lived in Jamaica, there was a big bad minds with the big X through it, no bad mind. But the idea is develop your group and whatever you want to call your group, your sponsors, your mentors, your sisters, your team that you're working together, because nobody can do this alone, fulfill your potential alone. And then three, there's a lot of structural things that we need to take care of, whether it's putting in diversity director. We're teaching unconscious bias now. I'm in a place, as I told you, 85% Hispanic, but Hispanics aren't 85% leadership. And I want to know why. And so we have to eliminate structural barriers too. And we have to make sure that we are having the same development opportunities and demanding them for all people, not just people that are the loudest or the best speakers, but that we look across and have a structure. If you want to build a power plant, you have a lot of project plans. If you want to build a human capital and you're getting the best of everybody, you have to have project plans. You have to have, we have quarterly conversations instead of annual reviews. You have to give people feedback. You have to be in partnership with the people you lead and with the people who lead you. So I think adding the structural component, get your mind right, get your team right, work however you can to eliminate structural barriers. And then we have I think an overall conversation in the world about just pure data. Know the data. The data is the data, man. No matter what you say. I mean, I was laughing. And again, sometimes it's provocative. We're sitting in our team members that are people of color, Hispanic, Anglo, and all that. And we were talking about a board seat. We said, oh, we need a board seat, a diverse person on the board seat. And the Anglo person was getting upset. And the other person said, hey, welcome to the last 500 years. I mean, so, but the reason I say these are raw discussions that need to happen. Yeah. And it's hard, but let's have those discussions and look at the data. Data is still X% of people that sit on boards are not diverse. It's still the data. And if you know the data, you can approach it from a less emotional or a way that sounds emotional. Like, we just need more opportunities. No. 70% of people sitting on boards, our boards need us. It's not like the world needs us, not like a beggar, but like I'm here to help kind of mentality. So I think we do all that.
Oh, I love it. So much to unpack here. And I think the data is so important. So, because sometimes you can see, and I think sometimes, when you see a woman leading an organization, it's almost misleading in that you think, oh, well, the problem's solved because there's a woman in leadership or there are two women on the board. And you don't realize, no, you need to see how many women at management, how many women at VP, how many women at C-suite. And then even when you see it across an industry, the women may be very visible because they're highlighting, oh, look at us, how diverse. And then you realize, well, wait a minute, let's look at the numbers. Let's see how many, and then you realize maybe not so much. I worked for a multinational, and luckily I've worked for several, so this won't tell who it is. But I remember there was this meeting and they said, oh my gosh, look at us. And it was probably about 200 leaders. And they said, oh my gosh, look at us. Look at how diverse we are. I was the darkest person in that room.
And you're not very dark.
And I was like, no. And I said, any room in which I am the darkest person and there are 200 people, something is wrong with that room. And so they didn't even see the lack of diversity in that room. And I'm like, and that's a problem. And if they were looking at it from a data perspective, it would be very clear.
Yes.
Not so much. Yeah.
And it's good the way you said it. Like, have compassion. Like, we all are doing the best we can from what we know and where we've been in the world. So if you're a white man who's been growing up in this industry and you see any women around the table, you're like, wow. So I think we have to be, all of us, a little easier on each other, but we also have to say, too, I'm a part of a multinational company now. There's 24 companies. 25% of our investors are from the US and the rest are for someone else. There's 24 CEOs. There's 2 women. I'm one, and the other woman is from another country, and she is not light skinned, and so she says, "You got 2 for 1 with me." But the point is, there's 24 CEOs. So we just point out there's 24 CEOs. There's 2 women, and so there's that.
There's work. But it's good. At least you're aware of it. And that way, you're aware of it and you understand exactly. You look at the data and then you determine. And I love that, listen, it takes time. But I think for the individual women and diverse candidates to understand that it's not going to happen organically. You have to be willing to stand up and be counted and understand that there needs to be pressure from both sides. There needs to be companies that recognize where diversity is needed for their benefit so the companies perform better. But it also needs to be that candidates are willing to be counted and willing to step up and willing to say, I'll do it.
Put me in, coach. Here I am, Lord, whatever you want to say. I think raising your hand is the best exercise you can do if you want to reach your potential. And I keep saying that because I think society has taught us to be, make more money, get a bigger title. Those things often happen when you're reaching your potential of contribution, your potential of leadership. When you focus on what more can I do, you do get promoted. That's a fact, but it's a different motivational energy about it. So always encourage, when people walk in my office, they'll say, how do I be a director? I go, what do you want to contribute? Tell me what you do better than most people. Tell me what makes you laugh. Tell me what makes you cry. Tell me where your heart is. What are you going to be able to do that will make your mark? Because, I want to get promoted. Who doesn't want to get promoted? I mean, that's fact. Right. But let me figure out something deeper than that. Let's work together to make something deeper. So for me, I think the good thing about this conversation is unleashing, this real magic and genius in so many people that have played small.
But I think also that you find that a lot of women are content, and I'm not saying that some men don't do this or and it's exclusive to women, but some people just sort of sit down and keep their heads down and I'm doing good work. They're going to notice me. No, I think you have to state your intention and be willing to answer the question. What do I do better? We are not. We are not. And I think something as simple as negotiating. I think a lot of women still to this day don't negotiate.
And I've had so many jobs, Racquel, I'll admit it. This last job, because I know the data, because the data is out there and it's very public. I said, I'm a really great negotiator for other people. I actually hired somebody for this job. And so I think it's okay, because I said, I am never going to do this and I am not good at it. And I, at some level, don't care about it, but it's something that you have to take care of. So I do think just know what the market is, know what you're worth, know your worth is another whole book. But I think it's just viewing it as you're going to contribute. What does the market say about that? And be fair. It's not fair that a teacher makes less than a running back, but it does. Know the market. You can't outrun the market, but you could make sure you're being paid like the market says you need to be paid. And I think the bigger thing is, let's tell our stories. Like, I tell my story all the time, so people don't think that people that are CEOs are somehow, whatever, life is somehow different from me than it was for you. My dad was a coal miner. He didn't graduate from high school. I had such a bad Southern accent that nobody could understand me. I never knew a person that went to college. I never thought I would ever have a real job, much less, So this idea that we all come from different places, our starting blocks are very different, but sometimes similar. And I just love when women start telling the truth about their mess. So that frees people up to know that the mess doesn't have to stop you or define you.
Oh, I love that. And I remember you telling the story about, when you were growing up and stuff your mom said to you. And it was, kind of shocking, but it's real. It's many of us, none of us have had sort of a perfect path, right? It's
No.
just, you kind of take what you bring to it. But the
Mhm.
nice thing is that consumers and customers all have like these crazy journeys as well, and these
Yes.
random experiences. And having that experience helps you to be a
Mhm.
better leader, because you understand that people are from different backgrounds.
Yes, 100%.
Fabulous. So what's the thing that you learned last year? I want to know about
Oh my
yourself.
gosh. I mean, it's silly things and big things. I get a 360 every year. And so I get to learn a lot about myself. But I was laughing today. This is a stupid thing, but they said, "What did you learn last week?" I said, "Well, when you're playing football, American football, it's playoffs, and somebody throws a dime, you would think that's what. It doesn't make any sense. It means more than 30 yards. But so, but that was a funny thing. But for me, I learned that I don't have to be present on my team. So I think that I had to be away from my team. We have meetings and I'd always make sure I was there. And I just always want to be there. And I learned that my absence sometimes is better than my presence. I learned that. I learned a lot about FERC. I mean, the
About what?
Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which I did not know about. I learned about a lot of technology things last year that will bore you, but what I learned more about myself is that my absence sometimes speaks louder than my presence, and life will go on when I'm gone, finally. But strategically, to be gone from my executive team meetings is a good thing. And nobody wants to believe that, because you want to think you're the glue. But you know what? Everything doesn't need glue.
I love that. But you know what's funny? I can see that because you're such a presence, right? And some people will feel, oh, well, Kelly's got it. And your absence creates
Yes.
space for them to have to fill and maybe grow. But I think I have that sometimes with my team as well. Like, if I'm in and we're speaking to investors or donors, they expect me to do the pitch. And I'm like, I kind of need to see you do the pitch. And they will not do it if I'm there. And I'm like, no, you kind of have to be able to do it. And sometimes I was like, okay, you take it and I won't even show up.
Yeah.
So you have no guardrails. I'm not even there.
And you know what else I learned? I live, as I said, in a place where it's 85% Hispanic, so I need to learn some Spanish. It's very humbling. So, but I did learn that when people see me struggling, it helps them. I mean, it helps us all to know we're all just bozos on the bus. We're all learning new things. And so, I had to, we did a little commercial on one of the Univision, Telemundo. We have 2 stations, and I'm with a very perfectly Hispanic speaking person. And so I'm saying, and she's nervous. I go, wait 1 minute here. You're nervous. This is your language. And so she finally got it. Like, I'm the person supposed to be nervous. I am looking stupid. And so it was funny because I got to notice after that, because a lot of people who have Hispanic sign last names, back in the day, they were taught not to speak Spanish. So I noticed that after I looked like a goofball, everybody else started trying to speak Spanish too. So I learned that you need to model learning new things. Learning them in quiet is great, but learning them and say what you learned, and watching people. I tried to climb a pole, for instance, and they filmed it for one of our podcasts, some social media, Twitter, TikTok, whatever. And it wasn't pretty. I mean, it's hard. I said, you could have waited not to the 100 a day where it was a 115 degrees temperature, and you could have let me practice. They're like, no, we want to show, because it was Lineman's Appreciation Day. We want to show how hard it is. So let's just say I have learned that the more you can show that things you can't do, it opens people up to be able to be vulnerable and what they're struggling to know too.
Oh, that's fabulous. I love that. It is so rich in texture, because there is something that all of us, we're all learning, and we all need to keep learning. And so showing that vulnerability and that authenticity that I think you are absolutely trademarked for, it shows that, listen, I may be great at this thing, but there are other things where I'm trying to develop, other things that I'm trying to learn. There's a
Oh,
fabulous.
wait. I'm not trying to learn to pole. I'm just trying to show you art. I could try right now and never going to be a great line worker.
I heard this great story from what's his name? Oh gosh, Warren Buffett's ex-wife, who talks
Yeah.
about she got sick and he had to look after her, and she was throwing up and he brought her a strainer, and she was like, "What?" And so, this man is an absolute genius. And she's like, if you can't figure out, that's not what I need right now. But he's just brilliant in one area, right?
Making money. Well, it's funny though. It does unleash a lot of things. In Jamaica, we dance all the time. And I told them, you just want us to dance so you can make fun of me. But now when I go anywhere, I'm like, why aren't you dancing? They're like, oh, I don't want to look stupid. And these are really titans of industry. I said,
Yeah.
oh, wait, everybody looks stupid dancing except like, Beyonce, J-Lo, Shakira. Everybody else looks stupid dancing. So you get over that and then you get a dance. So now
Exactly.
if somebody said, what was your contribution last year to El Paso? I'd say, oh, I got more people dancing. How about that?
Phenomenal. So what do you look for? You talked about sort of building your team, and how does someone go about doing that? Is it that you look for people who are like you, or you look for people who are different, who compensate? What's that process?
Well, first of all, I look for people who know who they are. The only people I've had to terminate are people who don't know who they are. So if I ask you questions like, what makes you laugh? What makes you cry? What do you do better than most? You better come up with something. Like people will stare at me like, what do you do better than most people? They're like, come on, you got to make biscuits, something. I mean, it could be anything, snowboarding. You have to know, and that's not being arrogant. I love humility and I look for humility and I look for people who have a deeper sense of purpose. And this is all before I get to the technical tone. Now, I have my team help me because we all love people like us, even when they don't look like us, right? We like people socioeconomically. I love people that have a hard story. Oh, and one of my best employees here, who's like my sister, who's a vice president in charge of energy solutions. She came from a wealthy family in Pennsylvania and went to a fancy boarding school. And I'm like, and if you look at us though, we're both Anglo women. Our life experiences have nothing to do with each other. So I think I try to look for people who have had different backgrounds and experiences, because looking at the visible is not good enough. I want to look at the meaningful. And I asked people to help me. I'll never forget, I was going to hire this woman and I was choosing between two people and I was asking my team and they're like, who do you like? I said, oh, I love Chelsea. They're like, uh-huh. I said, I just think she's so great and she's so this and so that. And they're like, uh-huh. I go, what's the problem? They go, oh, because she's exactly like you. I go, she is? I said, she's young. She's 25. She's nothing like me. They go, oh, no. She's exactly like you. Let me tell you, they went through the list. I went, oh, okay. The other person. I hired the other person. So I do think we need to, and we have all kinds of psychology exams now. So I do look for people that are similar to me in the sense of a sense of purpose. They're not about humility, about really being able to laugh at yourself and have fun at work. Because this is, I spend all my time.
Hard.
I do not want to have somebody that's pessimistic and negative. I don't care if you're Einstein, you can't work on my team. And then we go to how do you feel to complement the team? So it is unfortunate that if I have all these and you're one of these, I don't need another one. So I do look for team diversity in the sense of what's our background and experiences, what's our personality. You can't have all red people at the table, nothing gets done. Can't have all blue people at the table, or that you don't even know what's getting done. So I think that having a team that's balanced is probably the greatest magic you can bring to an organization.
And what's the process or what was your process for getting to know who you were? Is it a lot of introspection? Is it a lot of reading books? Is it a lot of hard knocks?
You have to have some practice. And I was a lawyer, and it's the practice of law. Leadership is a practice. And the little book I wrote was about leadership as a practice. You already know it. We've all gone to so many seminars. We've read all the books, we know. But what we don't do is embed it in our heart, our mind. And so what I think you have to have a practice, whether it's prayer, meditation, journaling, some practice, yoga, walking, whatever, where you cut out every piece of messaging that you get from the world that tells you who you're supposed to be, who you might have been, or who you used to be. Because I got to say, who I was at 20, 30, 40 is not who I am now. And I think we get a picture of who we are and we put it in the little frame and we think that's who I'm. No, it's a journey of discovery on yourself. And you can't, leaders know themselves and know others. And the way you make an organization sing is putting the right person in the right place. And if you can't know yourself, you can't know anybody else. So I think you have to have a practice. And all work is done through relationships. People will tell you how you're showing up. And I was lucky or unlucky. One time we went on this massive leadership thing in another company I worked for. And they had a coach, follow you around and assess you nonstop for a year. And you think you would start to be very careful, but after a while, you forget they're in the room, even though they're recording what you say, yada, yada. So she really helped show me how demeaning I could be just with my language. And I do a whole thing on words matter. Like I would start sentences like, how possibly did so-and-so think that? Or how possibly, she goes, do you know how many times you say how possibly? And that means, are you the dumbest person ever? So people will help you. 360s will help you. Your friends will help you. So it's both having a practice internal, but also having a mechanism to see how you're showing up in the world. And sometimes that's just painful. Every year I get this 360, like, oh my God, I interrupt people again. But I think just being vulnerable. And I say to my team, listen, I'm used to a big family. We never waited for people to speak. We just spoke all over each other. That's my culture. You have to help me. And just tell me I'm interrupting. They'll say, now they say you're interrupting. So it's the journey is, yes, it's good to reflect, but we're in relationship and at work. So having people, giving them a space to help you see how you show up, not what you think you're showing up as is important too. But I say to everybody, I don't care, pray, meditate, journal, walk, do something where you can stop the noise.
I love that. And I especially love your network is your net worth, because it is, like you and I met all these years ago in this trying to promote Jamaica Education Television, which is still running, by the way.
Oh, is
and
it?
then
Okay.
it is. And now, we didn't like stay in touch all the time, but we were at least able to, I was able to reconnect with you and have this phenomenal conversation, because you when you meet incredible people, you want to keep them in your life somehow.
And when I see your name, I go, oh yeah, I'll make time for her. My assistant was like, you don't have time for this. Oh no, we'll make time for this. And then we had the issue last week, and I thought, oh no, we'll find another time. She's like, but you do know when someone's up to something good and you want to support that. And you're clearly up to something good. This is a message that needs to be told in your idea about there is a danger of thinking, okay, it's all fixed now because now we got a few people. No, people worked really hard, and we have to keep contributing to that hard work and making sure that we have the ability to unlock everybody's human potential, because that just, when the economy thrives, where the world is better for everybody. And I think we all know that having a few people rise, it's not good for social unrest. It's not good for harmony. And so a lot of negative impacts of blocking people from their human potential.
Yeah, it's not done till it's done.
Not done till it's done.
You were going to say something?
And now I said, no, you got a lot of questions here.
No. That's it. I think that
okay.
That was just brilliant, and thank you so much. But
I'm just so happy to be here. The Caribbean changed me in ways that I still am discovering. I always said that reminded me when Mother Teresa said, you're going to get your heart broken open and the whole wide world will fall in. And when I left, and it's the way it felt for me, like there was so much, many times, but my heart was so open, and true leadership can happen. Martin Luther King today said, power without love can be toxic and abusive, but love without power is sentimental and anemic. So this idea of combining, I love the word power. We have all the best words, energy, power, light, our industry. But this idea of we as human beings and we as leaders, this idea of combining these concepts of love and power into making the world a better place. And when I loved Jamaica and I was so heartbroken, I got a tattoo that said one love, you know. Everybody sees it because it's on my foot. So everybody sees it. But anyway,
Okay.
I have to explain it.
I was scared to ask where it was.
No, it's on my foot. But everybody asked about it. And I said, well, for me, it was the essence of what I learned about leadership. This idea of unity. There is no leadership without unity. And this idea that we've watered down our words, especially in corporate America. We don't say the word love. We don't say the word sacred. And now I'm so happy when I hear my team say, we're in a sacred business. We provide security, this, that, and the other thing. And we have to love our customers. I'm like a proud mommy because words matter. Words matter. And I think that this idea of this combining love and power in your life for yourself, for others, and working together to make sure that everybody gets the microphone every now and again, there can be no, I don't think, a more sacred journey than making sure that everyone gets an opportunity to fulfill, you know, whatever you want to say God or the universe gave them to deliver to the world.
Yeah, and I think everybody has a gift that they need to do,
Absolutely.
that they need to deliver, and you just need to find it. You need to be willing to search yourself and get to know yourself. I thought that was brilliant. You know, you need to know who you are, and you need to have a practice that helps you to discover that. And you know, sometimes I get tired and I'm like, am I not done yet? But
I'm
just
done,
like,
Racquel, not done. You're doing climate, you're doing,
oh
equity.
my God, but I'm discovering new things all the time. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm tired of this awakening, but it's real. And you're learning yourself and you're changing and you're growing and, you know, you're getting uncomfortable and you're getting complacent and then uncomfortable. But all of that is about this magnificent journey we're on and what we have to give. And you've got to, at the end of it, you know, you regret the things you don't do. You don't regret the things that you do. My mom is a final care nurse and she says that all the time. She's like, people regret the things that they don't do. And I promise you, at the end of my mother's life, she's not going to have that problem.
Yeah, I love that when you say final care nurse. I've never heard it expressed like a final care.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
I love the work you're doing. Keep doing that work. It's important. And I look forward to hearing from other people on your show.
Yay. Thank you. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for listening and spending this time with us. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, but figure out who you are and go after what you want. There's no dress rehearsal. Just do it.
Just do it. We'll end on that. Just go do it.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Cool stuff. Bye.